In today's video, I'm going to be reading Chapter 3 of Essentially Deadly by April Graham. This is a really important chapter. This is about how essential oils affect your central nervous system. And I also, at the beginning of this, I have a clip from April Graham herself giving some information about herbalism in the United States.
I need to make a full length video about this just so I can like drop the link to people, right? And I'm gonna talk about like a fucking subject that's like right up there with getting me unalived as me talking against essential oils is, right? And that's the fact that there is no zero, nada, such thing as a certified herbalist within the United States. Now, in other countries, particularly over in Europe, they do have certification programs. You have to go and get like a license, and it's somewhat similar to getting like to being a doctor, right? But not in the United States. There is no federal recognition of herbalism, like certificates or courses or anything like that, and there is no state level.
Okay, before I start reading Chapter 3, Central Nervous System, I just want to say that I'm not going to read the studies anymore because I pretty much chose the hardest book you could want to read to people because the studies just show like equations and things that I can't pronounce and a lot of words I can't pronounce. That's why she lists the study and then she explains it for you. So this entire book is based on studies that she read and also other books and research that were done by other people. And so she does have 82 references. So at the very end of this, I will list all of the references that she is talking about. And when I'm talking about a study, I'm just from now on, I'll tell you, this is study number 17. So then you can look into this study yourself and see what it was. Or feel free to just buy the book. It's on her website, sheisofthewoods.org. And then you can just look at it yourself instead of listening to me, rattle this off. My whole goal is just to try to get people more informed and understand that this is like one of the biggest greenwashing scams of our time. And so I just really would love for people to understand this and, learn what I did from her and, just really try to get rid of these toxins. That's really not hard to do. And I'm not really sure how anyone listening to this, even after just listening to the central nervous system part, why you would ever want to use an essential oil again. And, for me, all I had to do was read chapter 1 and find out what was really in the bottle. And that's what sold me. And so to read the rest of this was so devastating because I had a diffuser running 24/7. It just makes me wonder how it did affect my dog. And that kind of stresses me out too. And, essential oils are really not good for animals either. So, and then just when she explains how, the chemicals and essential oils mix with the chlorine in our water, it creates like a whole new chemical. So anyway, yeah. So here we go. Chapter 3, Central Nervous System. The central nervous system, CNS for short, controls every single nerve in your body and is how my brain tells my fingers which keys to hit while I'm typing and a million other complexities that keep me functioning. Without the central nervous system, we die. No other system in the body is more important. The thing is, as though we know that VOCs attack the central nervous system, there is absolutely no debating this. So, one issue we face when going up against this industry and its often fever pitched followers is the idea that there have been no studies on the dangers of essential oils. Well, that's not true. It's just more common that the academic community studies the actual chemical compounds in a thing. So the layman screams, "No studies have been done," and I scream, "Look up the chemicals that are actually in that bottle. Plenty of studies to read." Although I will say in the last 4 years or so, there has been a real increase in the term essential oil used in papers due to it now being a common term and the actual dangers they pose. I'll direct you to my reference section for an example of both things I just talked on. Anyhow, I have one word for you: toluene. The effects of toluene on the central nervous system, reference number 14. In recent decades, the organic solvent toluene is emerged as one of the best studied neurotoxins. Long-term and intense exposure to toluene vapors in humans who abuse spray paint and related substances has led to the recognition that toluene has a severe impact on central nervous system myelin. Chronic toluene abuse produces a devastating neurological disorder, of which dementia is the most disabling component. The clinical syndrome toluene leukoencephalopathy can be detected by a combination of characteristic symptoms and signs, detailed neurobehavior evaluation, and brain magnetic resonance imaging. Let me connect a dot for you here in case you think the study above only applies to people who huff paint. Constituents of volatile organic compounds of evaporating essential oils. Reference 15. Toluene was also found in 50% of essential oils. Moreover, for the prevalent VOCs classified as potential hazardous, no significant difference was found between regular and natural essential oils. Now, because the essential oil industry supporters will say this is fine because it's a small amount, let's keep connecting the dots. Side note, the above study just told you that there's no difference between a natural essential oil and a chemically derived one. Per the CDC, toluene is absorbed rapidly after inhalation and ingestion. It is absorbed slowly through intact skin. However, percutaneous absorption may contribute to total body burden. Exposure by ingestion or inhalation can cause systemic effects. Okay, let me be a bit of a walking dictionary here. Percutaneous absorption basically means something absorbed through your skin into your tissue and full system over time, creating a toxic amount built up over time, i.e., total body burden. So the it's safe argument typically is based on a one-time exposure where we know the human body pisses out most toluene in about 2.5 hours. Yet we also know it can build up in fatty tissues, and the more fat we have, the longer it stays in our system. Now let's ponder what happens if we're constantly diffusing, ingesting, and slathering ourselves in essential oils. Do we still think it's no big deal that 50% of all essential oils have a measurable amount of a substance that absolutely kills our central nervous system? It may be easy to think, I'll just use EO that don't have these in it, okay? Hold on a moment. I have another word for you: camphene. Camphene is one of the most commonly found terpenes in nature. There are almost no essential oils that don't contain this particular terpene. In natural occurring amounts, like most of the terpenes and such we'll talk about throughout the whole book, camphene only really becomes a problem when humans think that nature needs to be refined into the strongest, most potent form possible. When we do this, we create yet another central nervous system toxic compound that we rub all over our skin, ingest, and in spray in our homes. Here is yet another study that shows essential oils are pesticide. High toxicity of camphene. So the important thing to understand here is what makes something an effective pesticide is its ability to attack the central nervous system of a pest, because that is an extremely effective way to kill something. Want to know something scary about chemicals? When they come into contact with other chemicals, they can become brand spanking new chemicals. For instance, when camphene comes into contact with chlorine, it has this nasty little habit of becoming something called toxaphene, a persistent pesticide. Toxaphene is such a nasty pesticide that the U.S. banned it for most uses in 1982, and all uses were banned in 1990. Consider the fact that the U.S. still allows the use of many horrendous pesticides that other first world countries have banned, but even taxophene, was so bad the US banned it. Oh, did I mention it stays in soils for upwards of 14 years? Why does that random, the more you know moment about toxaphene matter? I mean, we were talking about camphene, right? Let's see what happens when you add these all together. Camphene is the most common terpene found in essential oils, typically in concentrations between 3 and 90%, depending on the plant. At this point in the market, the only way to find essential oil free shower products or any products is to buy specialty items, meaning camphene is likely present in almost everything. Over 98% of U.S. water supply systems that disinfect drinking water use chlorine. Do you remember what chemical reaction happens to camphene when it comes into contact with chlorine? Toxaphene. A deadly pesticide that lasts for 14 years is being created every time you lather up with essential oils in your chlorinated shower. You're creating your own personal toxaphene experience. Fun stuff. That's the end of chapter 3.